Hey everybody, welcome back to Backyard Politics. I'm Nikki. Before I start this video, I should warn everybody, get your kids out of the room. It has to do with Jeffrey Epstein. This article that I'm going to read to you just came out from the New York Times, and I will link it in the description box. Let me get to it. Okay, it says, before jail suicide, Jeffrey Epstein was left alone and not closely monitored. The disclosures about apparent failures in Mr. Epstein's detention deepened questions about his death. A body believed to be that of Jeffrey Epstein was loaded into a medical examiner's van at New York Presbyterian Hospital on Saturday. And there's a photo of doctors. Okay. Jeffrey Epstein, the financier who apparently hanged himself in a federal jail in Manhattan, was supposed to have been checked by guards every 30 minutes, but that procedure was not being followed the night before he was found. A law enforcement official with knowledge of his detention said, give me 1 second, it's blocking me out on my computer. I'm going to have to read it on my phone. In addition, the jail had transferred his cellmate and allowed Mr. Epstein to be housed alone in his cell just 2 weeks after he had been taken off suicide watch, a decision that also violated the jail's normal procedure, two officials said. The disclosures about apparent failures in Mr. Epstein's detention at the Metropolitan Correction Center deepened questions about his very apparent suicide. Apparent suicide? Exactly. And are very likely to be the focus of inquiries by the Justice Department and the FBI. Officials cautioned that their initial findings about his detention were preliminary and could change. The Federal Bureau of Prisons has already come under intense criticism for not keeping Mr. Epstein under a suicide watch after he had been found in his cell on July 23rd with injuries that suggested that he had tried to kill himself. The law enforcement official said that when the decision was made to remove Mr. Epstein from suicide watch, the jail informed the Justice Department that Mr. Epstein would have a cellmate and that a guard would look into his cell every 30 minutes. There's also been an anonymous source that came forward and said that you're checked on every 9 minutes. But that's not in this. So it goes on to say, senior law enforcement officials, members of Congress, and Mr. Epstein's accusers have all demanded answers about why Mr. Epstein was not being more closely monitored. Mr. Epstein's death has also unleashed a torrent of unfounded conspiracy theories online, with people suggesting, without evidence, that Mr. Epstein was killed to keep him from incriminating others. I'm going to stop right there. That's bullshit. It is a conspiracy theory if you believe that he killed himself. He's a narcissistic fucking asshole who has the names of all of the elite, including Ghislaine Maxwell, who was his madam, and nobody's asking where she's at. Naomi Campbell, Prince Andrew. Bill Clinton was on the Lolita Express 26 times. Trump was on there once. There are ties to Mar-a-Lago, though. Al Gore and his wife. Heidi Klum. Alan Dershowitz. Kevin Spacey. James Cain. Gwendolyn Beck. Oliver Sacks. Bill Richardson. John Glenn, the astronaut. Catherine Inez Kerr and Kevin Maxwell. She's the wife to the brother of Duke of Roxburgh. And George Mitchell, U.S. Senator. Not to mention, Epstein's brother has ties to Adam Schiff, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who's also from Florida, where a lot of this shit has happened. She's also behind the Seth Rich conspiracy, where he was supposedly robbed and murdered, but nobody took any of his stuff. And he was going to turn over evidence that the DNC was rigging the election against Bernie Sanders. Um, let's see here. And Maxine Waters, also tied to Epstein's brother. So it is a conspiracy if you believe that he just killed himself. I don't know any narcissists that would kill themselves or feel remorse. Over the years, as the article continues, over the years, Mr. Epstein's social circle had included dozens of well-known politicians, business executives, scientists, academics, and other notables, including President Trump, former President Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew of Britain, and Leslie H. Wexner, the retail billionaire behind Victoria's Secret and Bath and Body Works. So in the previous paragraph, they're saying that there's a torrent of unfounded conspiracy theories online with people suggesting without evidence that Mr. Epstein was killed to keep him from incriminating others. But then directly after that, they say he was tied to all of these really well-known people. Okay. The article goes on to say Mr. Epstein, 66, was awaiting trial on federal charges. He sexually abused dozens of teenage girls when he was found dead in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center at 6:30 a.m. on Sunday. By the way, I want to see a body. That was the day after thousands of documents were released in a civil case that provided. I'm going to say this again. He was found dead the day after thousands of documents were released in a civil case that provided disturbing details about how he had lured scores of adolescent girls into prostitution, paying them to give him erotic massages at his mansions in Manhattan and Palm Beach, Florida. Okay. They weren't lured into prostitution. They were coerced into a fucking sex ring, first and foremost. Goes on to say, the former money manager was found semi-conscious 3 weeks ago in a shared cell with bruises on his neck after a judge denied him bail. He was placed on a 24-hour suicide watch and received daily psychiatric evaluations, the official said. But just 6 days later, prison officials determined he was no longer a threat to his own life and put him in a cell in a special housing unit with another inmate. One prison official familiar with the incident said, speaking on the condition of anonymity for fear of losing his employment, or fear of losing employment, I should say. It is standard practice at the Metropolitan Correctional Center, MCC, to place people who have been on suicide watch with a cellmate, two people with knowledge of Mr. Epstein's case said. But Mr. Epstein's cellmate was later moved out of the special housing unit, leaving him alone. Why? Bureau of Prison officials said it is standard procedure for guards in special housing units to check on inmates every half hour. It remained unclear why that procedure was not followed in Epstein's case. Like many federal prisons and detention centers, the jail has been short-staffed for some time, union leaders have said. Okay, so he's supposed to have a roommate. He's supposed to be checked on either, whichever report you want to believe, either every half an hour or every 9 minutes. Either way, he's supposed to be checked on. He didn't have either of those. He is the highest known fucking criminal right now with ties to all of the ruling class, and he turns up dead. There are fucking comedians that have been calling this out. Jimmy Dore, go look at his YouTube page. He made a fucking joke about this and called it out ahead of time. Graham Elwood from the Political Vigilante, same thing. He called it out ahead of time. This is bullshit that we're supposed to believe this. This is as believable as pianos jumping out of windows in Russia. But if we question it, we're conspiracy theorists. The article goes on to say the two guards on duty in the special housing unit where Mr. Epstein was housed were both working overtime, the prison official with knowledge of the incident said. One of the corrections officers was working his fifth straight day of overtime, while the other officer had been forced to work overtime, the official said. You can blame it on overtime all you fucking want, and I have no doubt that there's major issues in the prison system. But for example, my husband sells furniture, okay? He works overtime all the fucking time. Everybody gets their furniture on time, and furniture compared to something like this is fucking nothing. This is the highest known criminal right now. Come on. An investigation by the New York Times that published last year revealed that federal prisons across the county, including the MCC, have been dealing with rising violence as staffing at the facilities has dwindled. Questions about the safety of such prisoners arose late last year when James Whitey Bulger, the notorious Boston gangster, was brutally murdered in a West Virginia prison shortly after being moved there. So they're just planting all of these like false narratives of, oh yeah, well, remember this one case back in West Virginia? Well, he was killed too. This is what the mafia does, guys. Okay? They this case goes so far up. There's pictures, there's fucking proof, there's deposition that got released, which I'll also provide a link to. I'm in the middle of reading. I needed to take a brain break, and my daughter needs the laptop, but I needed to get this out. There should be video footage of what was going on in the prison. We should see all of this shit. One last thing, well, two last things. Acosta, who worked for Trump and who has ties to this, he's the one that let Epstein off initially with the Florida charges. Um, Speaking of the Florida charges, in the deposition that I was reading, it also says that a lot of this stuff happened in Florida, and that one of the accusers says that she knows for sure that Epstein had ties to the Florida Police Department. So Acosta, who let him off the hook the first time, says that he heard that Epstein was intelligence. We know they protect their own. What did Mike Pompeo say about being intelligence? He said, when you're CIA, you lie, you steal, you cheat. That's what you do. And the Miami Herald also said the Lower Manhattan facility is considered one of the most secure federal prisons in the country. I want to know how a person this high profile with ties to every fucking elitist you can imagine, plus people we don't even know, they just wind up dead and we're supposed to believe it. So that wraps it up for me for today on this video. I want to get a climate change video out really soon, but this seemed like it should be in the forefront. So question the mainstream, what you read, what you see on TV. It's bullshit. That's why you come to YouTube for your news. So again, I recommend the Jimmy Dore Show. The Political Vigilante is my favorite. And let's see here. I think that about wraps it up. So have a great Sunday or whatever day it is when you watch this, and Medicare be with you.